Imagine a vast period of human history stretching for 500 years, deliberately labeled as dark. A time of supposed ignorance, barbarism, and decline. But what if this widespread belief is actually history's biggest cover-up? A pervasive myth, carefully crafted and perpetuated for centuries, obscuring a vibrant, complex truth? Settle in as we unveil the shocking revelations about what was history's biggest cover-up. The Dark Ages, history for sleep. What was history's biggest cover-up? The Dark Ages, history for sleep. The term Dark Ages conjures images of a brutal, stagnant era following the fall of the Roman Empire, a millennium, roughly 500 CE to 1500 CE, or more specifically 500–1000 CE for the early Dark Ages, shrouded in ignorance, where learning ceased and civilization regressed. It's a narrative deeply embedded in popular culture, presented as a period devoid of progress, overshadowed by superstition and conflict. But what if this pervasive image is one of history's greatest misrepresentations, a cover-up that actively downplays a rich, complex, and often innovative period of human development? This widely accepted label, far from being a neutral descriptor, was a deliberate rhetorical device, crafted by later generations with specific agendas, eager to cast their own eras in a more brilliant light. By examining the true nature of the early medieval period, we uncover a story far more nuanced and dynamic than the darkness implies, revealing a fascinating intellectual and cultural landscape that challenges the very notion of a historical void. The cover-up thesis: who coined the darkness and why? The idea of the Dark Ages wasn't a contemporary self-assessment of the early medieval period. It was a term coined and popularized much later, primarily by three distinct groups with vested interests in painting their own eras as enlightened in contrast. 1. The Renaissance Humanists, 14th to 16th centuries. They were the first to use the term. Petrarch in the 14th century lamented the darkness that had fallen after the glories of classical Rome, celebrating his own time as a rebirth, renaissance, of classical learning, art and philosophy. They saw the preceding millennium as a mere interruption, a period to be dismissed. 2. The Protestant reformers, 16th century. Seeking to justify their break from the Catholic Church, Protestant thinkers often portrayed the medieval period as a time when the true gospel was suppressed, reason was stifled, and superstition reigned under papal authority. The darkness became a theological argument. 3. The Enlightenment thinkers, 17th–18th centuries. Driven by a zealous belief in reason, science, and progress, Enlightenment philosophers championed rationality against what they perceived as the religious dogma and irrationality of the medieval era. They further solidified the Dark Ages narrative to highlight their own age of reason. The cover-up was, therefore, a strategic act of historical framing, a rhetorical strategy used to elevate later intellectual and religious movements by contrasting them sharply with a caricatured past. It wasn't a literal conspiracy to hide documents, but a collective, often biased, reinterpretation of history, unveiling the hidden truth, why they weren't so dark. Despite the persistent myth, modern historical scholarship has thoroughly debunked the idea of the early medieval period being uniformly dark. Far from stagnation, this era saw significant, albeit different, forms of development and flourishing. 1. Economic activity and innovation. While the Roman economic system declined, trade certainly continued. New trade routes emerged, e.g. the vigorous Viking trade networks connecting Scandinavia, Russia, and Byzantium. New urban centers grew, and local economies adapted and thrived. Important agricultural innovations like the heavy plow, the horse collar, and the three-field system allowing more land to be cultivated and improving soil fertility, fundamentally transformed European agriculture, laying the groundwork for population growth in the High Middle Ages. 2. Political and legal development. The period saw the rise of powerful new kingdoms, e.g. the Franks under Charlemagne, the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms in England. Feudalism, while complex, emerged as a system of political and social order, providing a framework for governance in a decentralized world. Foundations for common law and parliamentary systems began to be laid in embryonic forms. 3. Intellectual and artistic flourishing. The Carolingian Renaissance, 8th-9th century CE. Under Charlemagne, there was a deliberate and widespread effort to revive learning. Monasteries became centers for the copying and preservation of classical Latin texts, grammar, rhetoric, and logic. Schools were established, and a standardized script, Carolingian minuscule, improved literacy. Monastic scholarship. Monasteries across Europe acted as crucial intellectual hubs, preserving classical knowledge through painstaking copying, conducting theological scholarship, and educating the elite. Art and architecture. The period saw the development of distinct artistic styles, including stunning illuminated manuscripts, e.g. the Book of Kells, and the robust monumental Romanesque architecture characterized by massive walls, round arches, and grand scales. 4. The Islamic Golden Age, a shining counterpoint. Crucially, while Western Europe experienced a period of decentralization, the Islamic world, spanning from Spain to India, was experiencing its golden age, roughly 8th to 13th centuries CE. During the very period labeled Dark Ages in Europe, Islamic scholars were preserving and translating Greek and Roman texts that had been lost in the West, making groundbreaking advances in mathematics, algebra, Arabic numerals, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, and engineering, developing advanced universities, libraries, and hospitals. This vibrant intellectual and scientific flourishing fundamentally challenges the notion of a universally dark period. 5. Irish monasticism. Isolated from the continental turmoil, Irish monasteries became beacons of learning and artistry, diligently preserving Latin and Greek texts and developing unique artistic styles, sending missionaries and scholars back to the continent. The conspiracy of omission. The lingering myth. The cover-up was less a literal conspiracy and more a pervasive cultural and ideological bias. Later eras, in their desire to define themselves as enlightened and progressive, actively downplayed or selectively interpreted the achievements of the preceding millennium. They emphasized the decline of Roman centralized power, the reduced literacy rates among the general population, and the period's religious focus, rather than its unique innovations and intellectual pockets. Despite overwhelming modern historical consensus that the Dark Ages were not uniformly dark, the term and its negative connotations stubbornly persist in popular culture, a testament to the power of a well-entrenched historical narrative. Conclusion. History's most misunderstood era. The true history of the Dark Ages is far more complex, vibrant, and significant than the misleading label suggests. It was a transformative period, laying the foundations for medieval Europe, preserving ancient knowledge, and witnessing important cultural and technological innovations. The greatest cover-up was the systematic dismissal of 1,000 years of rich human history, driven by later eras seeking to highlight their own supposed enlightenment. By dispelling the myth of the Dark Ages, we not only gain a richer understanding of our past, but also learn a valuable lesson about the biases and narratives that shape our perception of history itself.